Hey guys, welcome to another video on my channel. So today I'll be taking you guys through a live build that I'm doing for one of my clients. So basically, I generated this mermaid diagram as I've shown you guys before, about how I like to spec out, maybe in like a Google document what I want to build once I have the project plan for a client. And then basically what I would do is I would come to something like ChatGPT and then just put in like the idea and kind of like work with it to give me like a mermaid diagram. And then this gives me basically I'd paste it into Excalibur, as you guys can see here. I would come to the mermaid to Excalibur section, paste in the mermaid, and then it'll give me like this flowchart, which would help me as I'm trying to visualize how exactly I'm going to build this out. And also it's also nice to just be able to show like people on my team or maybe like the client exactly what I'm building out. So, I'll just take you guys through what I'm going to be building today. Basically, as you see here, how do I drag this? Oh, shit. Basically, as you see here, I'm going to be having a Google Calendar trigger. And the idea for this automation is basically whenever a meeting is scheduled on my client's calendar, they want to create a prep event, which is basically just like a meeting that describes like the attendees and what's going on basically. So they want this prep event to occur for like what's the word? They want this prep event to be added to the calendar so that anybody in their team can just read that and have context going into that meeting. So in order for us to achieve this, basically we're going to have a trigger, an n8n that triggers whenever a new event is added to the calendar. We're going to exclude X events. So basically we don't want to like use it, like we don't want to create a prep event and then go back in time and then create another prep event because it triggered our automation again. And that would just cause an infinite loop. So that's one thing you guys have to be aware of is like infinite loops. I'm actually going to write some things here, just, some notes. So we have this to, can I write it here? All right, here. Have this here to avoid infinite loops, right? I'm just going to put that up here and I'll drag that. And then the next thing, is we have this thing generate items 3 times. So basically my idea for that is, this is and this is going to make more sense once I describe how my agent works, but there's this thing, called like, I don't know the actual term for it. Let me see. I don't know the actual term for it, but basically the idea is if you run like your agents multiple times, like it may give you a result like each time differently, right? Or it might give you the same result, right? So those are the 2 options. And the idea is that if you run your agent multiple times and then you cache those results or you store what those results are, if your agent does what it needs to do more than, let's say, 50% of the time, then you can more or less guarantee that if you run your agent, let's say 100 times, and you pick like whatever it says with the highest probability, with the highest like occurrence, right? So let's say your agent is meant to say yes or no, and you know that you built your agent like that is decently good. And so if you have it run multiple times, let's say you have it run 100 times, then you know that once it runs 100 times, if your agent is like more than 50% reliable, then you know that if you just pick like whatever answer comes the most out of like the 100 times you ran it, then that makes your agent more reliable just in general, because then like if your agent just ran once and then they gave an answer yes or no, then it's like maybe 55% yes, 45% no, right? So that's not a good odd. But then if you run your agent like 100 times, then you know that maybe 55 of those answers are going to be yes, and then 45 are going to be no. And then if you just pick like whichever occurs the most time, which would be yes, then that just makes your agent more reliable in general. So instead of it being like 55% for 5%, I don't even know what the other percentage is, but it just makes it more reliable. So that's what we're going to be doing here, is we're just going to be having some sort of node to allow us to run our agents like multiple times so that we can have a more occurrent, right? So here I'm just going to write this out is we have this here to, I'm just going to write this out here, is to improve agent reliability. And then the next thing we're going to do is, this is what our agents are going to do. So, as I mentioned, we're going to need our agent to do a few things. Like, firstly, we need our agent to be able to query the calendar, right? Because what our agent needs to be able to do is say, if our client's prep event comes in and has this event occurred, do we actually need to create an event like a complimentary prep event for this other, like for this event that is just scheduled in their calendar, right? So we need access to the calendar in order to have that information, right? We also may need access to the email for us to see if there's context in the email that might give us more insight into the particular event and whether we need to create a complimentary prep event for that. I'm going to be using OpenAI GPT 4.1. I just find this model to be the best for agentic workflows and following instructions. Here we can also have this output parser. I just like to use an output parser just to ensure that our output is as expected. And then I have this node here, which would be aggregate prep, which would just take those, as I mentioned, we're going to run multiple times, right? So we're just going to have to take all of those and then figure out which ones we actually need. So I'll have a decision node. So maybe something like, so if prep needed is true, then we're going to have another agent that will basically get the meeting context, do some enrichment. Enrichment basically means it's going to search the internet using Perplexity and figure out if we should contact the figure out information about the participants in the meeting. And then here we have some Slack actions, right? So we'll notify the team on Slack or we'll create a prep event. Since I created this for my client, there's some stuff here I'm not going to go through, like HubSpots and all that. Just if I'm going to be building out this live, I'm not going to be connecting to the actual instances. But I'll show you guys how I'm going to build the whole thing, right? So I run a local host of n8n. So I'm just going to open that here now, and then we're going to start from scratch. And so, let me pull it up. So basically, the first thing we're going to have to do is I'll pull up our Google Calendar trigger. You guys can probably hear the fireworks. It's the 4th of July. So we're going to pull up a Google Calendar trigger. As I mentioned, we just want this trigger to run when an event is created, right? So we're just going to connect this so we're going to have to connect it to my calendar, right? So if you guys have ever used a, localhost of n8n or n8n at all, connecting to Google instances is not as simple as you guys would think. So I'm going to actually show you guys how we do this. So I'm going to open up my Google Cloud project. So you guys will just go to something like Google Cloud Console, and you can just go that and click on the first thing that comes up, and then you can go to my console. Then you'd have to sign in. So here I'm just going to sign in. So once you sign into Google Cloud Console, basically what you will need to do is to find your OAuth, right? So you just come in here and type in OAuth, click on credentials, and then basically you will need to make an OAuth 2.0 client ID. So basically what you can do here is just click credentials, and then basically you need a client ID. So you click client ID, you just say this is a web application. I can just say n8n tutorial. That's what I'm doing right now. And then the next thing we need to do is add an authorized redirect URI. So we're just going to come back over here and see here. So we're just going to copy this, and then we're going to add the URI here, right? I believe. Let me make sure I'm actually, because I have another one here. So I'm just going to pull this up to make sure we're copying the right values. So here I have it in n8n. So yeah, so we're going to copy that into here, which is good. And then I think we'll just hit create. Yeah. So I'm just going to create that. It might take a little bit. Cool. So I guess my ID and secrets have been exposed, but that's fine. I'm just going to delete this once I'm done. So we're going to come over here, copy in this client ID, and then copy in this secrets. Cool. So once you have your ID and your secrets, you will now be free to sign in with Google here. And then it's going to allow us access to our Google Calendar, successful connection, kosher. Then now this will give us access to our calendar, right? So here I'm just going to say, so, the other thing is, which is very helpful by n8n, is if there's still an issue, it's going to give you the exact link to go to. So here we're just going to go to this link so that I can actually authorize the API. So here I'm just going to enable API. And the good thing about Google Cloud is that they give you a $300 free trial. So if you guys are nervous about like using credits, you guys can just get that. So okay, I think this should be good enough. I try to select my calendar. Let me select my calendar for work. And then now if we fetch a test event, you see it grabs one of the events from my calendar. Cool. So the next thing that we want to build out here, I'll actually just like to come back here and say filter, right? So basically, what I'm just going to have here is the filter nodes, and this will basically say, how do we know if there's an event? Maybe by the summary, right? So let's just do it by the summary. And we'll just say if our summary, let's say it contains prep, right? So this is we're going to name everything like prep this. Let's say if our summary contains prep, then, we want to filter it out, right? Yeah. So, actually, it should be the other way, right? It should be if our filter does not contain prep, then we are allowed to go through, right? So if I test the workflow, yeah, then this would allow. Cool. So that's the first thing. Then the next thing we want to do, I keep clicking the wrong one, is generate items 3x, right? So I think what's the best way to do this. So basically the idea for this is I want to run my agent 3 times, right? Maybe what I could do is I would have maybe a set. Let me see if this is going to work. If I have a set and then I do something like, let me see if I can make this an array. All right, let's say I make this an array and then I say generate, and then say if I make this an array of 1, 2, 3. Let me see if that works. Okay. So let's see. And then if I do split out, then basically I'll split out this. So basically what I'm doing, guys, as I mentioned, I'm going to want to run my agent 3 times, right? And the way to do this in n8n is n8n works a bit differently if you're used to code. So like the looping is weird, but basically what I'm doing is I'm creating a manual array. So I'm just calling this 1, 2, 3. An array is basically just a list for people that aren't technical. So it's just a collection of elements. And I'm basically naming it generate. And then I'm going to go to, this other node, which is called split out. And then that allows me to actually like create, like a split of these. So I'm going to create a split of these as you see here. So now we have 3 items. And then I could then just use this loop node and that will loop over all of those 3 items. And then I can then, do my agent within here. So this allows me to actually initiate my, loop to go over my agent 3 times. Right. So that's what I called out here. Right. So just to recap, we've added our Go calendar trigger to trigger whenever a new event is added to my calendar. We filter out any events that already have prep so that that's not an issue. And then here we're manually setting an array so that we can, split it out and then loop over my agent that I'm going to create here 3 times. Right. Next thing we're going to do is create the agent. So here, I'm just going to pull this down. I'm going to delete this and then I'm going to add in the agent node, right? So I'm going to go to AI agent and then we can call this the, prep decider agent, right? Cool. Call this the prep decider agent. Nice. So now that we have the prep decider agent, let me see what exactly we want this agent to do. So, basically, we want to connect it. So these are all the tools we want to. We want the calendar agent tool, an email agent tool, an output path structure. And okay, cool. So let's start with the first tool. So usually what I would like to do, which I probably won't do just to keep this a bit shorter, I'll probably show that in a different video, is I like to create agents that call other agents. And the reason I like to do that is that it just keeps the context separated so you don't have multiple agents one agent that does multiple things, because sometimes it can get a bit like confused trying to do all of that. So it's good to kind of modularize your workflows, but for the sake of this demo, I'm just gonna like, have the agent do everything, right? So we're gonna have a Google Calendar tool. and then we're gonna have a Gmail tool, right? So basically the purpose of those two tools is to get more context about the current event that we're currently looking at, and then compare it to past events to see if events like the one that was just added to my calendar is similar to other events where I created prep meetings for them. And then we also want to check my email to see if if there's any information in my email that means we need to create a prep for that event. And then the next thing I'll do is just use 4.1, as I mentioned. I find that to be the most useful in this use case. So I'm just going to switch this to 4.1. And then I'm going to add, remember we already added my credentials, so this should be good. Just going to connect to my calendar. That should be good. And let me break this a bit down about how these tools work. So in these tools, you can actually tell the AI what you want it to do. So, maybe we just do that, right? Is we can just tell the AI, hey, do whatever you want to do. The only thing about this is sometimes it's good to either put a description here so the AI knows what it's meant to do, right? So you could say here is start of calendar to search for events. And then here we could put something like end, right? This just helps the AI know exactly what it's meant to put into this field, right? So, but I think it's also important to think about whether you actually want AI to set this, because if you want it to like work within a specific parameter, then it might be best to actually set it yourself, especially if your prompt is not specific enough. So here it's disconnected. So kind of need to do the same thing here. I would just use the same client ID. So here I'm just going to come over and grab the client ID. Oh no, not for this, but yeah, for here. And grab the client ID here. Here I have the client ID. Cool. I can just sign into my Gmail again. So let me see what the issue is. It says it's unauthorized. Let me see. Yeah, sometimes this stuff is just, did I even get the right client ID? Client ID. Okay, client ID. Let me see. So copying the client ID, and then try copying the right client secrets. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I think I messed up the client secret that last time. So now we have access to my email account. And then, here we actually just want to get menu, right? So we just wanted to see, we just wanted to look for some particular messages. Maybe we should add some filters. Just call it search, right? Let me see if there's anything else we might need it. So yeah, that might be fine. Maybe we want to give a sender so it can actually see if it's like the email sent by the person who scheduled the meeting or it's a part of the meeting. So yeah, we have our agent have access to these tools. Let's go back here. So again, I'm just trying to show you guys my process, right? I always go back to kind of my framework, my idea of what I'm trying to build. And that just guides me like very simply as I am building out my workflow, right? So the next thing here, once we have our agent, what do we want to do? So we're going to say, I'm just going to put a very simple prompt for now. I'm just going to have, so I always like to put my, assistant message. So you're a helpful assistant that is able to decide whether a complimentary prep event needs to be added to the calendar. And then for the user message, we're just going to hit define below. I'm going to say, given the information from the previous, let's do this. So given the information from the previous event, decide whether or not to output a, not to outputs, to create a prep meeting. return, uh, decision, yes or no as JSON. And then what I would do, is just probably just take this, go to like ChatGPT. So again, my workflows are usually a bit more complex than this, but again, for the sake of this video, it's just what I'm going to do. I'm going to say, I'm going to go up to here, and then I'll say something like, I'll copy this here, and I'll say, that's my user prompt. This is my system prompt. Boom. Please improve. So you can go with ChatGPT. There are lots of other GPTs that are good with creating prompts. And then you could just kind of copy it from here. It added some other stuff I didn't ask for, but we can live with that. So we're just gonna take this and then copy in the user prompt. Cool. And then the other thing we will do is, let me pull this down. We actually want to copy this, and then we're going to do something called adding a structured output parser. So basically the way you do this is you come over here and you toggle this on, and then that then allows you to add an output parser. This is something I always saw, and I never even knew how people would do it. So I figured it out myself. So basically what this does is it just ensures that your AI never gives you a wrong output, because this was the thing that AIs used to do that a lot of people had issues with, but it like was very bad at creating like valid JSON. So now like n8n has this thing where you can literally just tell the agent to fix it if it's wrong. So I'm gonna have this, and then I'm just gonna add a structured output parser, right? Then I'm gonna add the example so it knows what it should kind of look like. I'm gonna get rid of this because it's not valid JSON. And then this should be good, right? Boom. So now it knows exactly what my output should look like, and it's not gonna fail at all. So now that we have that, I have one more thing I need to do is actually add the calendar information. So here I'm just gonna look at this, and then I'm gonna say, you know what? I can even just do this. I'm just gonna do this. I'm just gonna add the entire thing. I think I can, if I just do, if I do the $sign, then I do open, then I do this. I have text expression. Yeah. So I do open, if I do $sign, if I do dash, I think, is that not anything? Oh, okay, yeah. If I just do this, I think it should, it just gives me an object. Okay. So I think I need to, and then we actually just need to define. So, you know, what we're going to do is we're just going to use the, what do we need? We need the created, we don't need that, but we need the summary. We need maybe the description, and then maybe we need the attendees. Yep. So we can just throw that in here. And then, you can add whatever you guys want, but I think that should be fine enough. So we're going to give it the, the created summary, description, and the attendees. So that looks good. And then we are now good to go. So let's actually run this agent and then see what it says. It's going to run 3 times. So we're going to have 3 responses. I'm just going to run that in. Okay, cool. So as you can see here, it says this doesn't need to be a prep event, right? Cool. And that makes sense because there is no context about that meeting, which would make my agent think it needs to be a prep event. But one thing I should have done in my prompt is tell it to use the tools. So what I'm going to have here is add it here and say use the calendar tool and the Gmail tool in order to check for previous events and context. Cool. So that should make that work a little better. Let's test that workflow. So now you can see here, the agent is actually calling the other tools. It seems to try to call the Gmail, but yeah, I have to enable the API. So let me quickly enable the API here. Just going to enable this. And then if I run this one more time, everything should work smoothly. Let me zoom out, smooth to the left, so you guys can see everything. I'm going to run this workflow again. So you see here, it's checking the Gmail, checking the context. They're going through that. And then you see it goes to the structure output to make sure it's correct. Just running the loop 3 times so that we get the results. And then we can come and see here. It's, yeah. So, that's basically how this works. I think I'm actually going to do this into part 2. So this first part will be just this first part of my workflow, having the decision engine, the decision agent, which actually decides whether or not we need to create a prep event. And then in the second workflow, I'll build the second part that shows how to actually create the information that we're going to be adding to the prep event. But I hope you guys have been able to learn in this video, like how to actually make agents, how to add tools, how to use the output parsers, and how all of that works together, and even some tips that I'm showing you here about looping through agents in order to make them more reliable. So I'm going to add this workflow to the description of the video. And hopefully if you guys find this useful, please subscribe, please join my community, and just leave your thoughts in the comments so that I can continue to improve the content for you guys. And please let me know what you guys would like to see me build next. So I'll see you guys in the next video.